Let me ask you something. What if the greatest battle of your life isn't happening out there? Not in your job, not in your finances, not in what people say or do to you. What if the real battle, the one that decides everything you become, is happening inside you? Because the truth is this: life doesn't defeat people, uncontrolled reactions do. And the moment you learn to control your response, you take back your power. Most people spend their entire lives believing that life is something that happens to them, that circumstances are in control, that the economy decides their future, that their past defines their limits, that other people's behavior determines how they feel. And they walk around reacting to stress, reacting to criticism, reacting to disappointment, never realizing that reaction is the very thing stealing their power. Here's what you must understand at a deep cellular level: life is not happening to you. Life is responding to you. Think about that. The quality of your life is not shaped by what happens. It's shaped by how you interpret what happens and what you decide to do next. Two people can face the same loss, the same rejection, the same failure. One uses it as fuel and rises, the other lets it crush them. Same event, completely different outcome. Why? Because one person took control of their response and the other gave it away. Every moment life is testing you, not to punish you, but to reveal you. And the test is never the event itself. The test is always the meaning you assign to it. The moment something goes wrong, your brain immediately asks the question: why is this happening? What does this mean about me? Is this the end or is this the beginning? The question you ask determines the emotional state you enter, and the emotional state you live in determines the actions you take. That's how destinies are formed, quietly, moment by moment, through response. Most people don't realize this, but they are on autopilot. Something happens and the reaction is instant. Anger, fear, doubt, frustration, they don't choose it. It chooses them. And when you don't control your response, you surrender your life to whatever shows up next. That's not living, that's surviving. But here's the shift that changes everything. The moment you realize that nothing has meaning until you give it meaning, you reclaim your power. That comment didn't hurt you. The meaning you gave it did. That failure didn't stop you. The story you told yourself did. That setback didn't define you. The response you practiced did. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. It will always try to protect you by predicting pain and avoiding discomfort. But protection is not the same as progress. Growth demands discomfort. Expansion requires challenge. And life will keep presenting you with situations that demand a stronger version of you until you either rise to meet them or retreat into old patterns. This is where leaders are separated from followers. Leaders don't wait for conditions to improve before they show strength. They decide who they are going to be before the storm hits. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, how can I use this? They don't say, this is unfair. They say, this is training. They don't let the external world dictate their internal state. And let me be clear, this isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about directing it. Emotion is energy. When you don't guide it, it controls you. When you do guide it, it becomes fuel. Anger can destroy you or it can sharpen your focus. Fear can paralyze you or it can prepare you. Pressure can break you or it can forge you. The difference is response. You always have a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it. The choice is not always about what happens. It's about how long you stay there, how long you stay angry, how long you stay discouraged, how long you stay stuck in a story that no longer serves you. Time spent in an empowered state compounds. Time spent in a disempowered state drains your future. Life responds to standards, not wishes. If you tolerate reacting emotionally, life will keep giving you reasons to react. If you demand growth, life will give you challenges that force you to grow. If you decide that no matter what happens, you will respond with strength, clarity, and purpose, life has no choice but to meet you at that level. This is where the battle within is won. Not when everything is perfect, but when you choose power anyway, when you decide that your identity is not built on circumstances, but on character, when you stop outsourcing your emotional state to the outside world and start commanding it from within, because the moment you control your response, you don't just change how you feel, you change what's possible. There are things in life you will never be able to control. You can't control the economy, you can't control the past, you can't control what other people think, feel, or do. And the moment you try to, you exhaust yourself. You drain your energy fighting reality instead of shaping it. Yet most people live their entire lives frustrated because they keep trying to control the uncontrollable. But here's the distinction that changes everything. While you may not control the event, you always control the meaning you give it. Meaning is the lens through which you experience reality. It determines whether something becomes a wound or a lesson, a setback or a setup, a loss or a launch point. Two people can go through the same trauma, the same rejection, the same crisis, and walk away with completely different lives. One carries the weight of it forever, the other carries the wisdom. Same experience, different meaning. The human brain is wired to ask questions the instant something unexpected happens, and those questions shape your emotional state. Ask disempowering questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or what's wrong with me? And your brain will find answers that weaken you. Ask empowering questions like, what can I learn from this? Or how does this prepare me for what's next? And suddenly your physiology shifts, your focus changes, your options expand. Meaning is not something why you discover, it's something you decide. Most people think meaning is hidden somewhere inside the event, like a secret waiting to be uncovered. It's not. Events are neutral. They simply occur. It's the story you attach to them that creates pain or power. When you say, this ruined my life, your nervous system responds as if it's true. When you say, this redirected my life, your body moves in a completely different way. Same facts, new future. And here's the part people resist at first. You don't have to wait until you feel strong to choose an empowering meaning. The meaning you choose is what creates the strength. Waiting to feel better before changing your interpretation is backwards. Action and decision come first. Emotion follows. Br. This is why people stay stuck for years after a single moment. Not because the moment was that powerful, but because the meaning they assigned to it became their identity. I'm not enough. I can't trust anyone. I always fail. Say something long enough and your brain stops questioning it. It becomes familiar, comfortable, and comfort, not pain, is what keeps people trapped. But the moment you challenge the meaning, everything loosens. You begin to see that what you once labeled as failure may have been protection. What you called rejection may have been redirection. What felt like loss may have been space being created for something greater. Life doesn't always remove what you want. It removes what can't go where you're going. DBR, when you consciously choose meaning, you step into authorship. You stop being a character reacting to the plot and become the writer shaping the story. You don't deny the pain, you use it. You don't minimize the struggle, you extract value from it. You don't ask for an easier life, you build a stronger self. And this choice of meaning isn't a one-time event. It's a discipline. Every day something will test it. A delay, a criticism, a missed opportunity, a curveball you didn't plan for. In those moments, your power shows up not in what happens, but in the split second where you decide what it means. That split second is where emotional mastery lives. Br. When you master meaning, you master your state. And when you master your state, your behavior changes. You speak differently. You move differently. You make decisions from clarity instead of fear. And the world responds to that version of you. Opportunities don't magically appear. You begin to notice the ones that were always there. This is why control is an illusion, but influence is real. You may not control the storm, but you control the sail. You may not control the past, but you control the lessons you carry forward. You may not control the challenge, but you control whether it strengthens or shrinks you. And when you choose meaning deliberately, life stops feeling like something you endure and starts feeling like something you engage. You stop asking for permission to feel powerful. You stop waiting for circumstances to align. You align yourself first. Because the moment you change the meaning, you change the experience, and that changes everything. Most people underestimate the force that is shaping their life every single day. They think it's intelligence. They think it's talent. They think it's luck, timing, or connections. But none of those determine the quality of your decisions in the moments that matter most. What truly governs your life is the emotional state you live in most often. Your emotional state is either working for you or working against you. Your emotions are not the problem. They are powerful signals. They are energy in motion. But when that energy is unmanaged, it becomes destructive. When it's directed, it becomes unstoppable. The same intensity that creates anxiety can create focus. The same passion that turns into anger can turn into resolve. The same pressure that collapses some people sharpens others. The difference is not emotion itself, it's mastery. Here's what most people don't realize. You are making decisions all day long from your emotional state, not from logic. Logic justifies after the fact. Emotion decides in the moment. When you're frustrated, you say things you wouldn't say otherwise. When you're fearful, you avoid opportunities you'd normally pursue. When you're empowered, you step forward without needing certainty. So if you don't control your emotional state, you don't control your future. That's why two people with the same knowledge and resources can have completely different lives. One lives in a state of possibility, the other lives in a state of limitation, and life responds accordingly. Opportunities don't knock on the door of someone who's constantly in doubt. People don't follow someone who's living in hesitation. Energy attracts energy. Your body is the gateway to your emotions. Your posture, your breathing, your movement, these are not random. They are patterns. When you collapse your body, your mind follows. When you shallow your breath, your thoughts tighten. When you slow your movement, your certainty fades. Change your physiology and you change your psychology. That's not motivation. That's biology. Most people wait for something external to shift their state. They wait for good news. They wait for confidence. They wait for motivation to arrive. But empowered people flip the equation. They generate their state first and then they act. They don't ask, how do I feel? They decide, how will I feel and what will I do from there? This is why emotional fitness matters more than emotional comfort. Comfort feels good in the short term, but it weakens you over time. Emotional fitness allows you to feel deeply without being controlled by what you feel. It allows you to experience fear without letting fear drive. It allows you to feel pain without becoming pain. That's strength. And make no mistake, life will challenge your state. Pressure is not a sign that something is wrong. Pressure is a signal that something is demanding more from you. If pressure overwhelms you, it means you haven't trained your state for that level yet. But if pressure sharpens you, it means you've conditioned yourself to respond with presence instead of panic. This conditioning doesn't happen by accident. It's built through daily standards. What do you do when things don't go your way? Do you collapse or recalibrate? Do you complain or refocus? Do you let one moment dictate your mood for the rest of the day, or you take control immediately? These small decisions compound into emotional strength or emotional fragility. Deeper, your emotional state is also contagious. Whether you realize it or not, you're broadcasting it constantly. People feel it when you walk into a room. They sense it in your voice. They respond to it before you ever say a word. That's why leaders are not defined by titles. They're defined by the emotional states they consistently embody. Certainty creates trust. Calm creates safety. Passion creates momentum. If you want to change your results, don't start by chasing outcomes. Start by upgrading the state you live in. Ask yourself, what emotional home do I return to when things get hard? Is it frustration? Is it self-doubt? Is it avoidance? Or is it curiosity, determination, and resolve? Your home state determines how fast you recover and how far you rise. You don't need to eliminate negative emotions. You need to stop letting them run the show. Feel them fully, then choose deliberately. That's mastery. That's ownership. That's power. Because when you command your emotional state, you don't just react to life, you shape it. There is a space that most people never notice, yet it is the most powerful space you will ever step into. It's invisible. It lasts only a fraction of a second, and it determines the direction of your entire life. That space exists between what happens to you and how you respond to it. And inside that space lives your power. Most people live as if that space doesn't exist. Something happens and they react instantly. A comment triggers anger. A setback triggers doubt. A delay triggers frustration. There's no pause, no choice, just reaction. And when reaction becomes a habit, life feels chaotic, unpredictable, overwhelming. Not because life is out of control, but because your responses are. But the moment you slow that process, even by a breath, you interrupt the pattern. You step out of reaction and into response. Reaction is unconscious. Response is deliberate. Reaction comes from the past. Response creates the future. That pause is where freedom begins. You see, your nervous system is designed to protect you, not empower you. When something feels threatening, emotionally or physically, it tries to move fast. It wants certainty. It wants relief. It wants to escape discomfort. And if you don't train yourself to pause, your nervous system will default to old patterns every time. Patterns that once kept you safe, but now keep you small. That's why you can promise yourself you'll stay calm next time. And then next time comes and you explode anyway. It's not because you're weak. It's because the pause wasn't trained. Awareness without conditioning is not enough. Winning the battle within is not about suppressing reaction. It's about creating space before it takes over. That space gives you access to choice. And choice is what separates people who feel trapped from people who feel powerful. In that space, you get to ask a different question. Not how do I feel, but who do I choose to be right now? Not what just happened, but what response serves me best? And those questions immediately shift your state. They move you out of emotion and into intention. Most people think self-control is about willpower. It's not. It's about awareness in motion. The ability to notice the surge of emotion without becoming it. The ability to feel the trigger without obeying it. The ability to let the wave pass instead of being pulled under. That space doesn't eliminate emotion. It gives emotion direction. Think about the moments you regret most. Not the things that happened, but the way you reacted. The words you said too quickly, the opportunity you walked away from because fear spoke first, the relationship you damaged because pride answered before presence arrived. Every one of those moments had a pause you didn't take. And now think about the moments you're proud of, the times you stayed calm under pressure, the times you listened instead of reacted, the times you chose courage instead of comfort. Those moments weren't accidents. They happened because consciously or unconsciously you created space. That space can be trained. It starts with your body. Slow the breath, slow the reaction, straighten your posture, steady your voice, ground your feet. Physiology buys you time. Time creates choice. Choice creates power. Then comes language. What you say to yourself in that moment matters. If your inner voice says, I'm losing control, you will. If it says, this is where I lead, you shift instantly. Words shape focus. Focus shapes emotion. Emotion shapes action. Over time, that space becomes familiar. What once felt like restraint starts to feel like command. You stop being surprised by your emotions because you're no longer afraid of them. You know they'll show up, but you also know they don't get the final word. This is how composure is built, not by avoiding stress, but by meeting it with presence, not by eliminating triggers, but by mastering your response to them. Pressure doesn't disappear, but it stops owning you. And here's the truth most people miss. The bigger your goals, the more important the space becomes. Expansion invites pressure. Leadership invites scrutiny. Growth invites uncertainty. If you don't widen the space between stimulus and response, success will feel just as overwhelming as failure. But when you do, something shifts. You stop being emotionally hijacked by every circumstance. You stop handing control to people who don't deserve it. You stop letting temporary moments dictate permanent decisions. In that space, you don't just regain control, you redefine who you are under pressure. And the moment you own that space, you own yourself. There is a voice that speaks to you more than any other voice in your entire life. It speaks before you act, while you act, and long after the moment has passed. It narrates your failures, explains your fears, justifies your limits, and reinforces your beliefs. And whether you realize it or not, that voice is shaping your destiny. Because the conversation you have with yourself determines the decisions you make when no one else is watching. Most people believe their thoughts are automatic, uncontrollable, just the way they are, but that belief alone gives the inner dialogue total authority. The truth is that voice has been trained, conditioned, rehearsed, and anything that has been practiced can be redirected. Your inner dialogue is not just commentary, it's instruction. When you say, I can't handle this, your nervous system believes it. When you say, this is too much, your body prepares to shut down. But when you say, I've handled harder, your posture shifts, your breathing deepens, and your mind starts searching for solutions. Same situation, new outcome. The difference is the words you choose internally. Most people let that voice run on autopilot, repeating old scripts written during moments of pain, rejection, or failure. Scripts that once tried to protect them, but now quietly sabotage them. Don't try too hard, stay small. What if you mess this up? Say those lines enough times and they become invisible limits. You stop questioning them. You start obeying them. But here's the breakthrough. You are not the voice. You are the one listening to it. And the moment you realize that, you gain leverage. You can interrupt, you can challenge, you can replace. Mastery begins with awareness, noticing the tone of your inner dialogue. Is it supportive or critical? Is it empowering or diminishing? Is it focused on solutions or obsessed with problems? You don't need to judge it. You need to observe it, because what you observe, you can change. And when you change the dialogue, you change your emotional state. When you change your state, your behavior shifts. When behavior shifts consistently, identity follows. This is how transformation happens, not in giant leaps, but through daily internal conversations. Language has power because the brain responds to it as instruction. If you constantly ask yourself, why am I like this? Your brain searches for reasons to stay stuck. If you ask, how can I improve this? Your brain starts scanning for answers. Questions are commands. They direct focus. Focus fuels emotion. Emotion drives action. That's why elite performers don't just train their bodies, they train their minds. They don't wait for confidence to appear. They speak it into existence internally before the evidence arrives. They don't deny fear. They talk to it. They reframe it. They redirect it. Your inner dialogue should not be a courtroom where you're always on trial. It should be a training ground, a place where you sharpen clarity, reinforce standards, and remind yourself who you are committed to becoming. This doesn't mean blind positivity. It means intelligent direction. Instead of saying, this is impossible, you say, I haven't figured this out yet. Instead of I always fail, you say, this attempt didn't work. Language narrows or expands identity. One locks you in, the other keeps you moving. At first, changing the dialogue feels unnatural. The old voice will fight back. It will say you're lying to yourself, pretending, being unrealistic. That's not truth. That's familiarity resisting change. Growth always feels awkward before it feels normal. Stay with it. Consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need to shout at yourself. You need to speak clearly and often. The words you repeat become the beliefs you live by, and the beliefs you live by shape the actions you take under pressure. Over time, something powerful happens. The inner voice shifts from critic to coach, from doubter to director, from saboteur to ally. You stop negotiating with fear and start instructing it. You stop rehearsing failure and start rehearsing response. And when that happens, the world begins to feel different. Challenges no longer sound like threats, they sound like invitations. Pressure no longer whispers panic, it signals preparation. You don't eliminate uncertainty, you meet it with certainty in yourself, because when you master your inner dialogue, you don't just change what you think, you change who you become. At the end of the day, every victory you admire in the world began with a victory no one saw. Before there was success, confidence, leadership, or momentum, there was a private decision made in the mind and reinforced through response. That's why the real battleground of life has never been external. It's internal. And until that battle is won, no amount of achievement on the outside will ever feel stable on the inside. Most people try to conquer life by changing their environment. New job, new relationship, new city, new strategy, and those changes can help, but only temporarily, because wherever you go, there you are. If the inner conflict remains unresolved, it follows you. Different scenery, same patterns, different circumstances, same reactions. Winning the battle within means you stop trying to escape yourself and start leading yourself. It means you no longer wait for confidence before you act. You act in alignment with your values and let confidence catch up. It means you no longer let fear vote on decisions that determine your future. Fear can speak, but it no longer decides. It means you recognize that doubt will show up, but it doesn't get to drive. This inner victory isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly in moments of pressure, temptation, and uncertainty. It shows up when you pause instead of react, when you choose discipline over comfort, when you respond with intention instead of impulse. Those moments don't look heroic, but they are, because every time you choose alignment over avoidance, you reinforce identity. You send a message to yourself, this is who I am now. And identity is the most powerful force in human behavior. Once something becomes who you believe you are, effort disappears. Consistency becomes natural. Standards rise automatically. Losing the battle within doesn't happen all at once either. It happens in small concessions. One excuse, one emotional reaction you justify, one moment you let frustration speak louder than purpose. Over time, those moments stack, and life begins to feel heavy, not because it is, but because you're carrying resistance instead of responsibility. Winning the battle within is taking responsibility without self-judgment. It's saying, this is mine to manage without shame, blame, or denial. That's freedom. Blame traps you. Responsibility empowers you. And here's the paradox. The more you master yourself, the less life feels like a fight. You stop wasting energy resisting reality and start using that energy to shape it. You stop fighting emotions and start directing them. You stop fearing challenges and start expecting them because you trust your response. This trust is everything. When you trust yourself to respond well, uncertainty loses its grip. You no longer need guarantees. You no longer need perfect conditions. You know that whatever happens, you will meet it with presence, strength, and clarity. That confidence is unshakable because it's not based on outcomes. It's based on character. This is how resilience is built. Not by avoiding adversity, but by proving to yourself again and again that you can handle it. Every internal victory compounds. Every moment of self-command deepens self-respect. And self-respect changes how you show up everywhere. In relationships, in work, in leadership, in life. The world doesn't need you louder. It needs you steadier. It doesn't need you reactive. It needs you grounded. When you win the battle within, your presence alone becomes powerful. You don't chase control. You embody it. You don't demand respect. You radiate it. And from that place, influence becomes natural. Decisions become cleaner. Direction becomes clearer. You stop oscillating between extremes and start moving with intention. You don't need to prove yourself. You're too busy becoming yourself. This is where control of response becomes a way of life, not a tactic. You respond to pressure with purpose, to setbacks with curiosity, to uncertainty with resolve. And life, always responding to who you are being, begins to meet you at a higher level. Because when you win the battle within, nothing outside can defeat you.